Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Kim Melton, and I am your moderator. A quick note before we get started, the information provided in this webinar shouldn't be used as a substitute for professional engineering design and/or documentation that's required by building codes, contracts, or applicable laws. So definitely you want to refer to the manufacturer-specific application guidelines or instructions and guarantee all requirements on projects. Today's specific discussion about tools, we would also ask you to refer to your owner's manual for your specific equipment on all operations discussed during the webinar today. We will be following today's webinar with a survey, and this is your opportunity to provide us with feedback on how we did today. You can even use that survey to ask any additional questions you may have about the topic of the webinar, or you can even suggest new topics for future webinars if that's what you'd like to do. But this survey is part of how we deliver the JM experience to you. Now, the JM experience is based on 4 pillars of the JM culture, and you can see those in the bottom left corner of your screen. And that's people, passion, perform, and protect. And we believe it's critical to make sure that we hear and understand and respond to your needs in order to deliver the best interaction to you. So we offer webinars like this one to help educate the market and offer a tool and a resource for you and your business. But this isn't just a one-way street. Your feedback is actually a key component to helping us evolve to better meet your needs. So if you have any comments or suggestions as to how we can better accomplish this, or maybe even if you feel like we missed the mark today, we would definitely encourage you to fill out the survey, and we'll use your feedback to improve our webinars and provide the information that has the most value to you in future webinars. Now, we have been asked a couple times whether or not we're sending out these presentations on their conclusion. And while we don't send out the presentation itself, we do post a recording of it on our website that you can watch on demand. And this helps ensure that you can have the presentation within its full context so you don't miss any of these important details that we're going to share today. So with that, I'm going to hand the ball to Chris Sasdelli, and he's going to introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar. I hope this finds you all safe and healthy. My name is Chris Sasdelli. I'm a field tech for JM. I've been in the film industry for going on 25 years now. I spent 17 years as an installer, and I've been with JM going on 8 years now. I have my contact info up on the screen. If anyone wants to or needs to copy it down, please feel free. When Tom Calcavera, our technical manager, asked the team what presentations that they wanted to do for WebExes, I immediately said that I wanted to do an AP Fusion gun. And this presentation isn't about everyday common maintenance on our gun. It's once we've gone ahead and cleaned our gun and got it back on the hose and we go to spray and something's wrong. We just don't know what it is. So if you'd like, keep a pen and paper. I've got some part numbers and there'll be phone numbers at the end of the presentation if you guys would like to copy those down. So here we have some common practices. For spray foam, AP Fusion gun. Make sure you guys are wearing all your proper PPE when you're cleaning your gun. That may mean respirators. You definitely want to have your glasses on, coveralls, and gloves. We're working with raw chemicals, and it's very important that we're all safe when we do this. All right, we all know that we need specific tools to clean our guns. A couple of my favorites for cleaning my gun are one, a scalpel, indicated here, just a little razor knife, and a 1/2-inch plumber brush. One of the other good things is Graco's cleaning kits. They also have a drill bit kit. And in the next slide, here's the part numbers for those. First, the drill bit kit for the handle. If you have a serious crossover, you're going to need some of these drill bits to go ahead and clean your gun, and we'll get into that further in the presentation. And also, Graco's brush kit works really, really good on the guns. Some things that I don't have listed that I like using is it's a flush pot. It's a pressure vessel that puts gun cleaner through your gun and evacuates all the raw chemicals. Some other tools that you could possibly need. I like using a 9mm nut driver. I use this for when I have stuck side seal cartridges or mixing chambers. I'll get into that later. A 1-inch combination wrench, and a 1/4-inch Allen key. Also a 9/16" combo wrench. These are for the air fittings on the gun if you ever have to replace those. I don't like using channel locks or vice grips as they can damage those fittings, and then you have to replace those. All right, I know it's kind of strange that I have transfer pumps in a gun presentation, but I just thought it was important for everyone to know that with your different systems, you require different pressures. Your transfer pumps, if you're running a 2-to-1 transfer pump, you want to keep those pressures at 65 to 85 PSI max. If you're using a 3-to-1 transfer pump, you want to keep your PSI approximately 50 PSI to 65 PSI. And the reason being is those transfer pumps, whatever your inbound air pressure is, it multiplies it by the 2 or 3. We don't want to overpressure our proportioning pumps. Your gun air, you can run your gun air up to 120 PSI. So you can see the difference. You have a lot more pressure and volume coming through at 120 PSI. This is going to do 2 things for your gun. One, it's going to actuate faster. It's going to be more responsive when you squeeze the trigger. The other reason is tip air, okay? The tip air cleans the buildup on the end of your mixing chamber, so you're not constantly scraping. It helps with that. It also helps atomize your pattern and keep that nice round pattern. Okay, our fluid pathways. This is the route that our material takes when it enters the gun. It comes in through our check valve assemblies, goes up through this narrow passage to our side seal cartridge assembly. In the event that we have a crossover, that's going to be packed with cured foam. Really important that we drill those out. You have one on the A side, and you also have one on the B side. So important to do this because if you clean the gun, you don't pay attention to this. You put the gun back on your hose, squeeze the trigger, and guess what? You're only going to get one side of your material coming out, which makes a mess. So just make sure that you check these if you have a real bad problem with your gun. All right, so the next thing I'd like to discuss is check valves. If you've disassembled your check valves down to all its individual parts, when you reassemble this check valve, it's important that you go ahead and put your spring guide back in the proper position. If you go ahead and bottom it out, you can put a lot of tension on that spring. And if we have some debris or contamination or crystallized isocyanate in those spring coils, your check ball might not open up properly. You might not get the proper flow coming through, which is going to lead to an pressure balance, and you're going to have a problem. Next, obviously, if we get some crystallized iso on those threads, it becomes a real big pain to go ahead and try to chip all that out so we can get our spring guide out. So that's a no-no. Next one, if you do not recess your spring guide fully or enough, what can happen is when you go ahead and seat that in its slot, your O-rings might not seal to the fluid housing. And when you go ahead and put your gun on, you don't have a tight seal, and you can go ahead and get a leak. So we want to make sure that our spring guide is just beyond flush. This is the proper position for that guide. All right, so we're going to go with our side seal cartridges, and we've all been there trying to remove a stuck side seal from the cartridge. So we can't get it out. So what's the first thing that we do? You go ahead and grab a pair of pliers, and we go ahead and start pulling on that. So we squeeze, and then guess what happens? Our pliers go ahead and they slip off. We repeat, we get our side seal out. Now we've gone ahead and we've rebuilt our gun. We put our side seals back in, and we go to spray, and we open up our fluid valves, and guess what? We've got a leak. Well, why am I getting misty? Well, what happened is when your pliers slid off the side seal, it gouged the corner of it. You can't get a real good seal if that happens. So the easiest way that I find to go ahead and rectify this problem is just take a pick or a screwdriver. We'll stick it in one of the orifices in our side seal cartridge and just start prying up on it. Now, you may have to use an additional pick or screwdriver, but what's going to happen is that side seal is going to go ahead and pop out. And then we don't damage any of our equipment and we're not replacing side seals before we have to. Next thing, when we have this apart, one of the things that a lot of people forget is that our side seal spring puts tension and pressure on our side seal to our mixing chamber. Probably every 3 or 4 times that you change out your side seals, you're going to want to go ahead and replace this spring. As you can see here in the picture on the left, it's slightly compressed as compared to the spring on the right. This is enough to reduce that pressure that you can get fluid bypass on your side seal mixing chamber interface. So when you clean your gun, you may want to go ahead and check that spring height to make sure that it's still acceptable. Next thing we're going to talk about here, and this is a common one, is your muffler. Okay, you have a mesh screen inside this muffler, and over time you can get debris, grease, you can get scale off of your compressor coming through your hoses and getting compacted in this filter. If that happens, your gun will not actuate. If you can't relieve the high side pressure in your motor, it's going to stay in whatever position it is in. So one of the things that I like to do is whenever I have a problem with a gun and I don't know where it is, I like to separate my parts. I like to take the fluid housing off of the handle, and then I have 2 separate systems. You can then plug your air into your handle and see if your gun goes back to normal handle operation. If it does, you know the problem is in your fluid housing. If the problem doesn't go away, you automatically know it's in your handle, and that's where you need to start looking. So in the case of our muffler, what we want to do is just get a wire brush. Maybe we use some stick knot, some gun cleaner, or some brake clean, and a wire brush, and go ahead and scrub this mesh filter out as best you can to get you through the day. And then just know that you need to order another part, and it needs to be replaced because that one is having problems. All right, next on the agenda is our spool valve. Okay, this valve is what dictates what way our air goes. It goes to the front of our motor or the back of our motor, and that's either spray or not spray. This piece is hollow through the center, and it can get compacted with debris just like our muffler. If you're having problems with your handle, and this is one of the things you want to check, it's very simple. Get your pin vise. You can use your mixing chamber drill bit and just drill up through the back of it. And then also make sure that your cross air passages are also open. You can drill those out if need be. And then just check with some air. Make sure that you've got flow going through the whole spool valve. All right, next thing that we're going to talk about is our needle valve. So if you're holding your gun, as this arrow right here indicates, this is your needle valve. Probably 95% of the people that I go to visit do not even know what this is for. This needle valve controls your tip air, which comes out the front face of your fluid housing. If you have a crossover, this is one of the areas that's probably going to get clogged up with cured foam. It's very simple. Just take out your mixing chamber, take out your needle valve, and drill both orifices out. If you can see your drill bit coming through as dictated here and here, you know that pathway is clean. You can also blow that out with air when you're finished. So this is our air cap. You all know about it. Some people don't know what all the little pathways are for. You have 4 pathways. You have north, south, east, and west. They lead up to the center where the yellow arrow is pointed in the right-hand picture. There is a recessed ridge in there. What this does is this diffuses that air from those 4 individual points and kind of puts it into a circular shape. So this air helps keep your mixing chamber tip clean, and it also helps atomize your pattern. It keeps that good spray pattern. Now, when that ridge becomes compacted with foam, or any one of our 4 air pathways in our air cap stem become clogged, it puts more pressure on the other ones, and it can affect your pattern. You might get a couple fingers, it might be all pushed to one side, but this can be a cause of bad pattern. It's just not cleaning your air cap. All right, we're going to talk about the front air passage in your handle, okay? I get a lot of phone calls where it's like, hey, I can't drill down from the top air pathway in the neck of my handle. It's because it's milled at 2 individual angles, as you guys can see here. So this is in the neck of our gun, and it's only going to go down so far, and then it's going to change angles to go down. This area here is where your spool valve lives. That's where that goes. So to get to the bottom pathway, it's going to require you to use a 1/4-inch Allen key, and it is the plug that is just in front of your muffler on the bottom of your gun. So this is what it looks like coming up through the bottom. And if we want to clean the bottom angle of our front air pathway, very simple. We just get one of the drill bits out of the drill bit cleaning kit and come up through the bottom of the handle. So if you look here, you can actually see the drill bit. Now, this is where our spool valve goes, right where my laser pointer is at. So this is right straight through the spool valve area, and you can see the drill bit. That's as far as it's going to go. It cannot go up because of the angle change. So what we need to do is we need to get our pin vise with our little drill bit, and we're going to come down from the top. And it's only going to drill down so far. You don't want to put a power drill on this and try to ream that out. Trying to get it clean, you'll ruin your air handle. So as you can see, it's not coming through. Now, what you can possibly do is if you have a thin piece of wire or you have the brush set from Great Coast Cleaning Kit, it's very simple. You just go ahead and put a slight little bend, downward bend on your wire or your brush, and you can basically get that brush or wire to contour to the angle change, and it will push through that whole area. And I know this isn't a real good picture and it's kind of hard to see, but if you look closely here, you can see that brush has gone all the way down into our spool valve area. Nice and simple. We know it's clear there. If you want, you can go ahead and put some air on that. Go ahead and blow it out, and then we're happy. All right. We've got some additional tips for you guys. We've all been there. We've got a stuck mixing chamber. We've got stuck side seal cartridges. All right. Well, how are we going to get these out? For me, it's kind of simple. You just need a couple things. I like using a 9mm nut driver. It fits down nice and easy around our side seal. It's not going to damage anything. And then it's just very simple. You can just go ahead and get a rubber mallet, nylon hammer, and just gently tap down until that side seal cartridge pops loose. It's going to be really the same thing for your stuck mixing chamber. You've had a crossover. It's basically glued in paste. Maybe you soaked it in some cleaner and it hasn't worked. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my 9mm nut driver out. I'm going to go ahead and just put that over the end of my mixing chamber. And I'm just going to gently tap down on the front of that mixing chamber until it starts moving. Now just remember, we're not playing whack-a-mole here. It's just nice, easy taps to get that mixing chamber to start moving or to get that side seal to start moving so we can get it out without damaging the cartridge the mixing chamber or the fluid housing again. This is all about not wrecking our equipment. This is an alternate position for your air. Not a lot of people know about this. Some people do like their airline coming in the bottom of their gun. I'm one of them. But yeah, this works good for those of you who may want to try it. Now, because I like to keep all you guys knowing everything that I know, this is Graco's newest and greatest gun. It is the Fusion PC gun. This gun, if you notice here, it uses a cartridge instead of side seals. It alleviates some of the problems that we've covered here in this presentation. For those of you who are interested, please contact Damon Stevens. He is our parts manager. His contact number will be up. He is also an FTR, so if you have issues, you can also call him. Nice thing is all you have to do is take off your air cap, your retaining ring, pop off this cartridge, the old cartridge, and put a new one on, put everything back together and go back to spray. So it's supposed to cut gun cleaning time down. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover our resources real quick. We currently have 5 FTRs, and that's including Damon, who is also our parts manager. We have Wyatt out west, Wyatt Stevens, Jeffrey Brody is up in Canada. I handle the northeast and north central. Jacob kind of handles the southeast, and Tom Calcevera is our manager. Jaya Dorsey handles all our internal technical needs. Jeff Job is our specifier. So if you have contracts that aren't spec for JM and you want to hand getting those changed over to JM, please feel free to give Jeff Job a call. And as I said before, Damon Stevens is our parts manager and FTR. So if you need parts, Damon gets it right the first time. So please use him as a resource also. So with that being said, here's our 1-800 number for TechConnect, and that wraps up my presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate your time and presentation here today. Before we dive into questions, I do want to go through our upcoming webinars for this TechConnect 5 Live series. We obviously have available on demand the presentations that we gave the last 2 weeks, and that was properly mothballing SPF equipment and blowing wool machine and accessories checklist. Next week, we will have net and blow wall installation, and then the week after, we will conclude our 5 Live presentation series with the SPF 10 golden rules. Today's presentation will also be available on demand, but we do have to prep the recording for everybody. So we will send an email to you when that is also available. In addition to the 5 Live series, we do have AIA certified webinars if you're looking for continuing education credits. These are going to be this week, the week following, and the week following that on Thursdays, and we'll be covering walls at work, architectural acoustics, and continuous insulation solutions. So if you have any interest in attending those, you can find links to that on our website as well. So with that, we're going to get into some questions. And the first question, before we dive into questions, we do have Tom Calcevera on the call as well to take any questions that might be out of Chris's bandwidth. So to start with our question, the first one is for Chris, and this was a pre-submitted question, and that is, how many O-rings should I replace every day?
Well, you shouldn't be replacing O-rings every day. If you're replacing O-rings every day, something's going horribly wrong. Everybody has their own idea of, what O-rings I should use, whose O-rings I should use, and how often I should clean my gun. If your gun's working properly at the end of the day, don't replace any of them. If you're starting to see leaks or your gun's not actuating or working properly, then rip it down and rebuild it. So that's as needed. I mean, that's the best I can give you.
All right, that's great. The next question is, I just rebuilt my gun. Why is it still leaking?
There can be a lot of reasons as to why your gun is leaking. First, we're going to have to start with, where is it leaking? Is it leaking out of the connection between your hose and your gun? Real simple. You probably got bad O-rings. If you're getting a mist coming out of the front of your gun, there's several things that can cause that. It's the interface between the side seal and the mixing chamber. Are they both new? Are they worn? Do you have any marring on either one of those? It could be two O-rings in that side seal cartridge system. So where the actual O-ring that's on the side seal that slides into the cartridge is bad. It could be that it's wore out. Maybe some built up ISO on the A side has worn it out. It can also be that internal O-ring on the actual cartridge itself that's worn out, and it's allowing fluid to pass by and blow out the end of your gun.
All right, thank you. So if, on that note, if your gun is still leaking after a rebuild, you can contact our TechConnect team, and they can help you troubleshoot what's actually going on if you're using JM installation. This is a service we offer to our JM customers. So definitely keep that in mind. If you have any troubles, this is the contact information for you, and you can reach out to us, and we can definitely help you with that. The next question is also for you, Chris, and that is, can you eliminate any of the personal protective equipment when you're cleaning because you're not actually spraying?
No, I would wear my personal PPE. Even when you're changing barrels, you should be wearing your respirators in the back of your rig. It's there for a reason, and we all want everyone to be safe and healthy and go home the same way they came to work.
Great, thank you. The next one is, what kind of cleaning fluid should I be using?
There's different types of solvents to use and cleaners to use. Whether you're talking about raw chemical, as in A and B side, you can use a gun cleaner, glycol ether, or if you have cured foam or crystallized isocyanates, you can use something like stick knot. You can just, if it's really bad, you can soak them overnight. Generally, a lot of times, if it's not that bad, you can wait an hour and the parts are clean.
All right. Can I use antifreeze to clean my gun?
Antifreeze is not designed to clean gun parts. One of the things about antifreeze is if you just, at room temperature, antifreeze is not going to clean your parts. You have to boil it. And when you boil it, you give off toxic fumes that can help affect you health-wise seriously. So I would not recommend it, not at all.
All right. Do I need to clean my gun in a well-ventilated area?
I mean, like, do you have to be outside on a work table with an exhaust fan? No, I mean, back of your trailer's fine. I mean, you should be wearing your proper PPE anyway, so ventilation's not really that great of a concern.
All right. How long does it usually take to clean your gun?
Well, again, it depends on how you do it and how bad your gun is dirty. If you have a complete crossover, it can take you a couple hours to clean a gun. If it's just hey, I haven't cleaned it in 2 weeks, and I just want to check my filters and all, 15, 20 minutes to go ahead and break it down. If you want to use something like a flush pot, as I mentioned earlier, this is a great time to use it just for those intermittent cleanings when it's not really dirty, but you just want to check everything.
All right. Are there any critical maintenance steps that should be done to the Fusion AP gun at the end of the workday to ensure that it works properly the following day?
There's nothing really critical. Graco says to grease your gun at the end of the day. They say to grease it maybe at lunchtime. What I've had a lot of success in doing is at the end of the day is I will turn my air off. I will put a couple drops of stick knot down my mixing chamber. I will drill my gun out. I will purge out all that contaminated stick knot. Then I'll turn my air off and I'll put another couple drops down there. Now, I'm not saying, pour a tablespoon of stick knot down your mixing chamber. Just a couple of drops. What's going to happen is if there's any buildup on your impingement ports, as that stuff sits overnight, it's going to eat all that stuff off your impingement ports, and probably 90% of the time, you're even if you had a bad pattern, you're going to go back to a perfect pattern afterwards. And along with that, if your gun really starts getting dirty, what I've done is, now you have to be careful to protect your hose here. You don't want stick knot getting on your hose, but you can just get a spray bottle, spray the outside of your gun down with stick knot, put it in a plastic bag, and just leave it in the back of your trailer. you come in tomorrow morning, and all that cured foam is just going to pretty much blow off your gun.
All right. So the next question is, if I'm using a different manufacturer's closed cell foam and I switch to JM foam, what steps should I take or can I take to switch my pumps and keep spraying?
Well, first thing is you want to make sure that your pumps are wiped down very clean. Your drive shaft and your pump, it goes into the bottom portion of your pump. You want to upend your pump and drain that out. You can also pop the check ball at the bottom and drain down that material. There's a lot of ways to do this. Some people that I don't want any contamination whatsoever, they flush out with water. Some people will go ahead and pump air through the whole system and then chase it with the next foam. The most important thing is, and this is if you're going to another manufacturer or even an open cell to a closed cell foam, you really should know the stroke count of your machine and how long it takes to get from the time you put a pump in a drum to the time that material comes out the end of the gun. What you don't want to do is have that intermingled material. You don't want to spray that on your project because you just made your own foam. So you want to make sure that you're into whatever you're going into, make sure it's clean 100% of that foam before you continue your spraying.
Great, thank you. The next question is, can I boil gun parts?
Can you boil gun parts? What are you boiling them
Correct.
in?
I would suspect water.
If you're boiling in water, I mean, it's not really going to do anything. I mean, besides water soluble, but if you're boiling it, there must be something wrong with it. Me, honestly, I would just soak them in stick knot overnight. You want to make sure that any big bulky foam, you remove that manually, and then all that fine detail stuff, you just let that soak, and you should be able to drill it out relatively easy the following day, or scrape it off, or brush it off the following day.
The person who asked the question just clarified that they were looking to boil it in cleaner.
No, all right, so I'm going to take that you're talking about stick knot. No, you don't really need to go ahead and boil it. When you boil things in stick knot, aluminum parts, they can get etched. That's the same thing with antifreeze. It'll start etching your aluminum parts. Just soaking them should be fine.
All right. What type of oil do you use for the flush pot?
So that would be a glycol ether gun cleaner. It's not as abrasive. It's not as hard on the O-rings as a stick knot. Stick knot will destroy O-rings. And if you get someone there, they'll turn to jelly, and basically they'll lose any sealing properties of what they have. You put pressure on them and they'll blow out. One other thing I want to say, and I forgot to mention it during my presentation, is you guys should all have a spare gun on your rig. That's the easiest way to stop downtime.
All right. The next question is, why does my B-side check valve end up with something similar to fuzzy strings caught in it?
It could be something in the manufacturing process, but that's why we have our filters there, so that stuff doesn't get through. I don't really know what the fuzzy strings are. I don't know if it's localized to you, your equipment, and I'm not blaming you by any means whatsoever, so please don't take it that way. So, I mean, the honest answer is I don't know exactly where it's coming from. I mean, you can always send that stuff in, and I'll analyze it, and I'll see what it is.
Great. So this sounds like a great question for the submitter to go ahead and contact us, and we will actually help you troubleshoot that. The next question is, why does my stick pumps seem to get stuck 1 minute and then work correctly the next?
Okay, so if we're talking about a legitimate stall at the top of your stroke, your stick pumps, drum pumps, whatever you want to call them, in the very top of that pump, there's a cap, and inside there you have a conical spring. So the internal parts of that pump need to travel and engage that spring. If that spring becomes compressed, it's not going to manually push down the reversing switch in your air motor, and it's just going to stall at the top of that stroke. I hope that's what you're talking about.
All right. What is the correct flow rate at the manifold without the gun attached? This person is trying to troubleshoot a crossover.
Well, a lot of variables come into play there. So what your flow rate is depends on what proportioner you have, what size pumps you have. But if you're trying to go ahead and determine by taking the coupling block completely off and going into 2 separate 5-gallon buckets, your level should come up pretty much even in both of those buckets. Feel free to give me a call, and I can help you talk through, maybe help you fix what's going on with your pump.
All right. And then our final question for today is, which is better side seals, the metal or the poly tips?
Okay. So again, I mean, it's personal preference. If you're talking to Wyatt Stevens, he's going to tell you polycarb. If you talk to me, I'm going to say steel. I like the fact that I can polish my old side seals, and Wyatt likes the fact that the polycarb doesn't really damage the mixing chamber as much. It's really comes down to preference. Do you like Ford or do you like Chevy? I mean, that's basically what it boils down to.
All right, excellent. Well, Chris, thank you. We certainly put you on the hot seat there for a couple minutes, and we appreciate everybody who attended the webinar today. If you have any additional questions, please submit them via the survey, and we will absolutely reach out to you afterward. And we all hope you stay safe and healthy and are able to use this information going forward.
Thanks, everybody.